Hi guys, Shema Polot here. Welcome back to the channel. I've taken a break from Excel for a while, and this week I'm coming back with something really important. And so I want to talk about pivot tables. Okay, so I've released some videos about how to make you a basic analyst, relatively decent. And if you want to be very good at managing your information in your business or in your workspace, pivot tables are absolutely essential to have in your toolkit. But today I just want to show you just the basics of what it does and what it can do, and then we shall see about doing something a bit more advanced next week. But for now, let's get into it. Okay, so we have a bunch of data here. This is random data that I got from, I can't remember where, but it's a company and they sell furniture. So you have different columns: salesperson, number, which is a sort of unique ID, and then the area, which is like a branch, and total sales, commission, total pay, salary, tables sold, revenue from tables, chairs sold, chairs revenue, and they sell everything from tables, chairs, all the way. And then we have total items sold, total revenue, and net profit. Okay, so you may want to know, when can you use pivot tables? Okay, so you use pivot tables when you have what I call unsummarized data. Okay, that's when you have data in its rawest form where there are multiple instances of certain items. And let me give you an example of what that means. So for example, if I looked at this data and I asked you, what are the total sales by area, or what are the total sales by branch? Okay, so you look at the data and you quickly notice that the branches, which is south, east, west, and north, at least we think, they're repeated multiple times, okay, as you can see here. So in order to find the total sales by branch, you'd first of all have to find how many branches there are. Right now we're assuming that there are 4, but there could be more than 4. And then we would have to get the sales. You see these total sales here? These total sales map to south, okay? So we would have to get the total sales for every occurrence where there's south. So like in this case, add this to this south, find south. And so get the total sales for every time south appears, add them up, get the total sales for every time east appears, add them up, and so on and so forth. As you can see, that takes a lot of time. This is why pivot tables are useful. So when you have instances of unsummarized data, so when is that applicable? You're in your business and you want to find out how much money your customers are bringing in, and your customers come in every other day. So eventually you can add up the money that the revenue generated from a specific customer, or you can add up the revenue generated from a specific product, right? If the product is being sold multiple times in your data set, okay? That's when you can use pivot tables. So in this particular example, what we're going to do is create the most basic table I can think of, which is the total sales by area. And that will give us an example of how to move forward using pivot tables. Okay, so in order to create pivot tables, every column should have a unique column ID. So salesperson, number, area, each of these columns should have a unique ID. The columns can have the same ID, but I don't know why you would want that to be the case. But for the purposes of your pivot tables, you want each column to have a unique name. The other thing is you want to make sure that there are no empty spaces in your data, okay? And I mean empty spaces in the rows, so spaces like that. My computer is really slow, but yeah, spaces like that, okay? I'm just going to undo that. Okay, the other thing that you want to make sure of is you want to make sure that there are no totals or subtotals within your data. So maybe if you had, hypothetically speaking, if these were months and then you had total sales, and then you'd have like total sales by that month added up in the middle here, and so on and so forth. So can't have that as well, okay? So once we check and all those things are met, we are ready to create our pivot table. Now, as our data is currently constructed, we can create pivot table as it is without any problems. But another thing that I recommend we do is we convert our data to a special Excel table. If you don't know what a special Excel table is, lucky for you. I think I've made a video on it. I'll put the link up here. I'll also link an article that I wrote about special Excel tables in the description below. But you want to convert your data to a special Excel table because when it's in a special Excel table format, if this data is updated, if you add a new salesperson with their information here, the information will update automatically in the pivot table. And we shall talk about that when we get to the advanced stage of pivot table. But for now, stay with me, okay? So, to convert the data to a special Excel table, what I do is I click anywhere inside the data and I hold Control and T. And Excel asks me where is the data for your table, and I see these what I call crawling ants around the data. You see them here, and I just move around to make sure that Excel is capturing the entire range that I want. Again, I apologize, my computer is a bit slow, but yeah, and it looks good. So then and my table has headers. I leave that checked because Excel is just recognizing a header row at the beginning, and then I click OK. And once I click OK, the data is converted to an Excel table. It's just taking a bit of time because my laptop is really slow. I'm not sure what's happening today. But there you go. So now our data is in a special Excel table format, which is what that looks like. Usually I go and I clear the table just so because I find the color, all that color a bit overwhelming. And so sometimes I go up here and I just click clear, so that the data still is in an Excel table but doesn't have so much color, like that. Okay, again, I apologize for the lag, my computer is really slow. Okay, but now we have our data in a special Excel table and all the other requirements are met. So then I want to create total sales by area. So now we're ready to create our pivot table. We go up to Insert, and we go to Pivot Table. And there you go, this window opens up, and Excel asks us to select a range. In a new worksheet or an existing worksheet, I recommend you do a new worksheet for now. And we click OK, and a new sheet is going to open up. There we go. This on the left is where our pivot table is going to appear, and on the right is where we have our pivot table fields. So here, the pivot table fields are just all the columns in our table, okay? If you remember, salesperson, number, area, all the way down to net profit, as you can see there, okay? Now, this might look a bit different. It's just because I changed it over here. Yours in your Excel, I think, will look like this. Okay, you just have to come to this gear here and change it. I like it to look like this because I want all the column names to appear on one side and then all the boxes. Okay, so now this is the cool part about pivot tables. Okay, so if we want to create total sales by area, everywhere you find a numerical value, numerical values in this case number information. So quantities, total items sold, total revenue, total sales, data that's numbers, okay? That data usually goes inside values, okay? Almost always goes inside values, okay? So what I want total sales by area. So I want a table, and if you visualize this table, we're going to have total sales by area. So we're going to have a table, and the areas, I'm trying to close my eyes, right? And so the areas or the branches will appear on the left of the table, and there'll be branches in a sort of line like this, and then their total sales will be right next in a column separately, right adjacent. So we'll have a column for the areas or the branches and a column for their total sales, okay? So to do that, I get area and I drag it to rows like that. So this is what we're looking for, right? We're looking for a column full of our branches. So we grab area and we drag it to rows, okay? And so sometimes Excel is smart enough to know exactly where these column titles should go. And so to remove something from the box, you just hold it and drag it and drop it outside. Okay, but also if you just check the box next to area, Excel will sometimes put it exactly where it needs to go, which is in rows in this case, but that doesn't always work. So it's important to know exactly where this needs to go. Okay, and then total sales. Remember, total sales, if we go back to our main data set, this is a total sales is a numerical value. It's money. Okay, so what we do is we go grab total sales and we take it down to values, like we said. And there we have it. We have total sales by area, and our summary table is done. This could be ready for sharing if you wanted to share it in that format. But so instead of dragging total sales, I could also uncheck and just check the box, and still Excel will take it there. So that's like basic pivot tables 101. Now, before we end, I just want to add a few more things. So one is this sum of total sales. So you can change the summary value by which the total sales are displayed. So instead of the sum, you could do the average by clicking on that downward arrow and going to value field settings. And you could select average instead, click OK. And as you can see, now what you have is the average sales by area or by branch. And you can change these totals by just changing it here. You can change the title right there. You could also change this title to branch, right, like that. So that is pivot tables 101. So you just need to find the summary. You need to know what summary you're looking for, and then you just come here and you drag and drop. And so what is the difference between rows and columns, for example? So this is the last thing for this beginner version. So what if I want the areas to be up and I want to move things around? Let me just see if I can move things around, and maybe it's clearer if I just do it instead of talking about it. So I'm going to drag area out of there first of all to remove that. And so now let me put area in columns. And now you see there north, south, east, west. You see where they go. And so I want to put tables sold, chairs sold. Okay, so you see how this can be a bit confusing, right? It looks a bit crazy, right? And that's the difference between using areas and columns and switching it up a little bit. But the idea that I wanted to emphasize in this particular case is moving area to columns transposes the original table we created. So if I remove these tables sold and take them out of rows, we still have the same data that we had before, just that the areas are now up here, right? And the average sales are just below, okay? All right, so I'm going to take area back to rows and just put the data back the way we got it initially. Average total sales, I'm going to change it back to sum. Okay, so we're back where we started. Now, before we go, there's a shortcut for doing this, which I always like to show after the original illustration. It's always important to know how to do everything from scratch, but Excel always has ways to make your life easier. So this is how you can do it a lot faster, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this sheet with the pivot table. Okay, so now we're back to our main data set. Now when we go to insert, again we want total sales by area. Now when you go to insert, there's this tab here called recommended pivot tables. Okay, now what this is Excel looks at the data you have and tries to guess what kind of summaries are interesting for your analysis. So it tries to do your work for you. Now, if you click recommended pivot tables, as you can see, Excel gives you certain sample pivot tables that you might be interested in. And look at the first one. The very first one is sum of total sales by area, okay? And this is what we did. And at this point, if you can find the table that you are interested in right now, then you don't even need to go through the whole dragging and dropping. All you have to do is click the table you want and click OK, and Excel creates it automatically. And there you have it, okay? So pivot tables are like magic. You can do almost anything in Excel with pivot tables and knowledge of a few formulas. You don't have to be an expert, but knowing pivot tables and knowing a few formulas, like that video I showed you about becoming an analyst, which you can watch here. With pivot tables, you become intermediate level Excel person in the very least. I'm going to make another video that goes more in depth into what pivot tables can do, but for now, I want us to stop here. This is beginner level, this is fundamental, and I want you to play around with it. Go into the recommended tables and see if you can create some of the options that Excel gives you. That's a good way to practice. Otherwise, in the next video, we'll do a lot more complex stuff, and we'll see what pivot tables can do. Otherwise, I hope you like this one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Otherwise, I will see you in part 2 of this video. Bye-bye.